Matthews. There he is. 985-505-7811. Hi, Norbert. Good evening.
Plenty of room.
Hi, Sheila. What's cooking? Okay. We had a cameo appearance. It's very nice.
Oh, Randall. Hi, Randall.
Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody. Okay. No extra charge. All right. So, very good. Again, thank you all for joining. I am going to share my screen, a slideshow. Can you all see that? School of Practical Philosophy, stars?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. By the way, what I might suggest, Ed and Joseph, you can put yourself on mute.
Okay.
And that way, if the team there is talking, but feel free to take yourself off mute and jump in with a question at any time. You see where you can do that down on the bottom left?
270. That's it. Because I just
I'm hearing Sheila.
1 to 2.
Yes.
You see it? If you move your cursor around, you should see a little mute button, microphone down on the bottom left.
Left.
Okay.
Okay. Well, there it is.
This
Okay,
is first
very good.
page.
Got it? I'm still hearing you guys.
Yeah. So the first page goes on top.
Oh, we don't hear him.
Yeah, no, that's not the
Okay.
All right.
No, yeah, it's not turning off the audio. Down at the bottom left, there's a microphone. You not see that, Ed?
No, I don't.
You see a control panel. You're coming in through a
on the table, huh?
not a smartphone. Right?
Oh boy, it's terrible.
Ed,
Yes.
try to stay with me. You come in through a computer.
Yes.
Okay. Now, to move your cursor around, you should see what's called a control bar show up on the bottom of the screen. As you move your cursor, it appears and disappears. You not see it?
No, oh, there it is.
Okay, so just hit the mute button. Oh, before you do, I have a question. In the top right of your screen, what does it say? Does it say speaker view or gallery view?
In the top right, it just says you are viewing Randolph's screen.
Okay, in that, by the way, there should be view options right underneath that. And I'd like you to be in side-by-side mode.
All of us?
That goes for everyone. David, do you see what we're speaking about at the
Yes,
top?
I do.
Okay, very good. So be in side-by-side mode. It's just
Okay.
very good.
Yeah.
And the other thing, now you've gone on mute. That's well done, but I have one question for you, Ed. As you move around, does it say speaker view in the top right? Or to the right of where it says you're viewing Randolph? Yes, speaker view? Good. Because that means you're not in speaker view. And I want you to be in gallery view, but don't click it, otherwise you'll go into speaker view. Good. So everybody can see the slides on the left?
Yes.
Okay. This has all been recorded for posterity. All right, so we're here today, and thank you very much. We should, I hope, move through it at a pace to talk about the fact that we are transitioning from ActiveNet to LearningStream. STARS, I use the word STARS there. That's kind of an internal name that we've used over the years. I think we might have had a contest back when, and it was the Student Administration and Registration System, STARS. So today, by that, we refer to ActiveNet's, Active Networks, ActiveNet software, but in the future, we're going to refer to LearningStream, which is a product of a company out in Kentucky called JTC Technologies. So really today is about taking a step into that transition into this new world. But just by way of a little bit of background, this term, we began using LearningStream, and we're just using it for Philosophy Works in New York. And some of the all the team leads were trained, but I did invite Norbert and Karen and the other team leads to attend this session, Edmund yourself, because there are some new things that are coming online, and a refresher probably wouldn't hurt either. So now for the winter term, registration for, the intention was to use it for everything else now in New York and Hudson Valley. However, I'm going to have some breaking news in a moment that just came in a little earlier today that's going to modify that slightly, or quite a bit actually. And an exception even to that scope was that the M and the S levels under the annual plan are going to run out through the spring for the M level and summer for the S level, because people enrolled in the September term for a year. A year means different things. In the M level, it means through through the spring term. In the S level, it also includes the summer. But that's already in play. There was no reason to disrupt that, so that'll play itself out through, you know, the winter, spring, and in the case of the S level, the summer exercise. So that's all going to stay under ActiveNet, as will PPO. I'm going to introduce some terminology you'll hear along the way. LearningStream tends to call what we call a course an event. I'll try to use the word courses, but some places within LearningStream, we can't change the nomenclature, so you'll see it. The other thing I'll be referencing is a database, and that's very synonymous to the customer account file with which you're familiar in ActiveNet. You know, people's names and addresses and so forth. So they call it the database. Now, the way we've implemented LearningStream thus far, and this was part of the design of the intention of the marketing team, was to have a very, what they call frictionless experience. Very, very simple, basic information, first name, last name, email address. That's all you need to register for part one. Of course, you need to put in your credit card, but nothing more than that. The intention is to require a database record for everything north of Philosophy Works. So Philosophy 2 and up would have this database record. All right, a little bit more of a repository for people's history and so forth. Now, we're not going to be, the plan at the moment is not to import records from ActiveNet into LearningStream, but just by way of perspective, ActiveNet was first introduced in the summer of 2011. So we've had it for 9 years. And as of this month, there were 18,777 customer records in ActiveNet, of which there's 629 if you say, you know, who's active in ActiveNet, which would be part 2 and up, and all of Hudson Valley. So the question was, do we really need to import those? And at the moment, the going in approach is going to be to just have people re-enter their information. It's a moment in time where we might refresh that and let people update their records. And by the way, there are 750,000 account attendance records, detailed transactions within ActiveNet over those 9 years. And in both the case of the customer records and the registration and attendance records, we're going to save them to spreadsheets. So at some point, we'll have some conversation about how you might use these spreadsheets. If somebody has a question, did so-and-so, you know, attend here before? What was their past history? It's not going to be as elegant as doing a query within ActiveNet, but we will export both of those 18,000 customer records and 750,000 transaction records, and we'll have it as a repository. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, breaking news, and this happened on Tuesday. We were told that the fee for Philosophy Works is being changed in New York and Hudson Valley for the next term. Here are the essential elements of the change. Philosophy Works is going to be offered as a gift, but this is different from the gift that was announced in 2014. It's not going to be a $10 administrator fee. It is going to be completely free. The marketing team, this is a bit of an aside for our purposes, but the marketing team is working on a new ad campaign with Sub Rosa, the firm that did the design of the website and a lot of the marketing branding materials. It's likely going to return to the happiness theme. What we will need to do is introduce caps again, which we had 2 terms ago, and we had even more caps back in 2014 when we had our 50th anniversary. But right now, this term, we kept part 1 open. You could sign up and you just signed up. And the old expression we used to have, you can vary your night of attendance from week to week, serve the day. It's still going to be the case for Philosophy 2, 3, 4, and the other groups that have multiple meeting times. But in order to respect occupancy limits, fire code, etc., and you can imagine in what's in the economic world is called the elasticity of demand. If you drop your price from $90 to 0, we have to anticipate a big uptick in enrollment. I mean, just who knows? We really don't know. Back in 2014, at $10, we had about 1,300 people. And we really segmented it. You know, back then it was like you have to sign up and you were going to 2 rear, or sign up and you're going to 3 rear. You know, now that it's 3 front and 4 front, we're not going to segment it that tightly. We're going to segment it into 6 sections. Okay, a Monday through Thursday night, that's 4. Wednesday morning, that's 5, and Saturday morning is 6. So there are going to be 6 different sections into which people can sign up, and it'll be up to the greeters to be traffic cops to decide and work out, you know, they'll get a message from the 3rd floor, it's filling up, start sending people up to 4 or something like that. So that is a major difference that we're now going to have to, and Karen and Barry and I have been working on the configuration. We literally got this information the day before yesterday. So it totally changed our concept, both in terms of it being free and the implication for the number of people in this whole sectioning concept. And another aspect of this, as you can see, is that students that are currently in Part 1 are going to be offered a one-time only free Part 2 in the winter term. And if you step back and think of it, I think you'll understand the rationale. They just paid $90. Now
Sure.
they're going to have people coming in for free. Hey, what am I, chopped liver? I mean, you know, so they're going to be offered a one-time only free Part 2. And again, Barry and Karen and I have been in dialogue with Mr. Schott today. There's some logistics that'll be challenging about that, to only offer it to those that are in Philosophy Works this time. What about people, you know, people go away and they come back. If you publish something to the website, you can't publish 2 different fees, free for you and $90 for someone else. What do you think? They're going to pick the free one. So the intention at the moment, but it literally just, you know, we just learned about this and we're exploring it, is that we're probably going to publish the $90 fee to the web and then send a discount code to those people that are in Philosophy Works this term. Right now, there were about 149 people that signed up, and the expectation is in the next couple of weeks, we'll see, or by the end of term, who would be eligible. You have to attend 5 weeks. So if they attend 5 weeks, we'll probably send them a discount code. And that's, by the way, one of the complications in LearningStream is it doesn't have logical discounts the way we can affect them in ActiveNet. ActiveNet, you can do it based on being a senior citizen. You could do it based on somebody saying and indicating on their record that are a full-time student. LearningStream works entirely with discount codes. You may be familiar, you know, if you go to Harry and David's and you get the, you know, Peaches 2019 code, you'll get 20% off your next order of Peaches. It sort of works in that same kind of modality. So what we'll probably need to do is post to the web the $90 Part 2, but send to a known group of people this code. Of course, it doesn't prevent them sharing it. You know, they're you know, it's not perfect, but I mean, at the end of the day, the exposure is not too extraordinary. And by the way, Hudson Valley is also going to follow this approach. And they're going to continue at both Beacon and Wallkill. And for the time being, those 2, I've spoken initially with Mr. Wigman. He doesn't feel a need to segment those 2. But we'll see. If we start to get, you know, huge numbers, the Howland Center in Beacon, I'm sure, has fire code, and we'll have conversations. And I'm waiting to hear what the number is. At the moment, I'm setting it up at 60 people a room. But I have to have further conversation with Mr. Schott and Bosworth. You know, and we got a little time. We're not going to be hitting the ceiling of our limitation yet. And if that's not enough, under the heading of breaking news, earlier today, I heard that we're only going to use LearningStream for parts 1 and 2. This is quite a change. It does change what I said a little bit earlier, but I just got it and I didn't go through and modify all the slides. So what's happening because of the discount issue, there's also another issue with payment plans. I won't get into it all, but what the leadership decided is, because they could not resolve all of those issues, we're going to just use LearningStream for the free courses and for the $90 people paying in Part 2. Because those won't have discounts beyond the 100% discount you get if you got that code. And so anyway, it's quite a difference in scope. In some respects, it gives us a breathing room to start to get more familiar with LearningStream before, but up until earlier today, we were all on a path, and Karen was working, Barry, we were all setting up different, what are called events. for the I level and parts 2, part 3, and so forth. None of that needs to be done anymore. We do have to now get into it seriously for ActiveNet because we're going to go through our traditional, what we call the termly rollover to build all of the courses for ActiveNet.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Will people be able to walk in and register for Philosophy Works?
Yes. Now, you would need to ask them, I'm sorry, no, if they register for Philosophy Works, there's no discount code. They come in and it's free. And I'm going to show you in a moment, it's really greatly simplified because you're not going to have to capture credit card information.
But I'm just, I mean, yeah, I know it's free, but I mean, if they come in and how do we know if the class has been filled and we have to turn them away? It's been
Oh,
capped.
you should, okay, very good. That's a good question, and I haven't really explored that fully, but there is a limit that we're going to put on the class. So I presume, I actually played with it yesterday when I learned about this, not from the point of view of what you're speaking to, David, but from the point of view of waitlist. I did not mention that, but yeah, it's mentioned here. Once the number has been reached, the class will be closed. The registrant can either register for a different day or time or go onto a waiting list for next term. So there is a waiting list feature, and again, this is breaking news. I haven't fully explored it, but it looks possible to not only have them on a waiting list, the most immediate design of the waiting list was if a spot opened up in that particular class. But as far as I've banged around with it so far, it also seems to be the capacity to transfer them to another class, and we'd have a class next term waiting into which we could transfer them. Again, there's a lot of communication and process that's surrounding that. It's one thing to have the technical way to do it, but think about the fact somebody signed up for Monday night and they went onto the waiting list. We can't assume they want to come Monday night next term. We can't assume they want to come, but if they do want to come, we might have to have a dialogue with them. Oh, are you still open Monday night, or you want to move to Wednesday night? So there are a lot of logistics in any of these decisions. But is that a good start, David, to answering your question?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good. That's good. All right. So moving right along, as I said, more to follow when the process is clear. There are communications, there's things to be thought through, but the simplicity is everything that's going to follow here is going to be mostly for a free class. But, and you'll see there's a large percentage of these slides we're dealing with things like how do you receive cash, check, credit card, electronic check payment. You're still going to need to know that for those people that come to part 2 that were not in part 1 this term. But that should be, I don't know, I'll go out on a limb and say, maybe a half dozen people. We'll see what that's about. Okay, moving right along. So the idea of the training, and ideally we'll get this done in the next hour. Hi, Leslie. Is to being able to log in, register someone, and registration, as I'll emphasize a couple of times, is a two-part. It's got two aspects to it: capturing the basic data, and that in itself has two different modes. In one case with setting up a database account, which would be for a part 2 person, and without setting up a database account. And then the second phase would be to process the payment. You can actually register someone and leave them, you personally, someone in the field, in the public can't do this. For them to register, they got to process the payment, but it does allow us to enroll someone and leave a due and payable on their account. Canceling is very much a similar two-step process where you cancel the registration and also cancel the payment. We're going to go through editing their basic data and the database record. I'm going to show you a cute little aspect that's called the history or the log. We'll talk about overriding fees if something happens. Again, some of these things now are probably not going to be in your scope, for this upcoming term. These are things that would most likely happen with, some students at a higher fee that are given a concession by their tutor. How would you override the basic fee? That kind of things. This is not going to happen for the most part for part 2 people that are paying $90, and certainly not for people in part 1 and part 2 that are paying nothing. But I'll go through it. I'll try to make it through it quickly because, again, I didn't reshape all of the slides when I got that news earlier today. There's a way that you can transfer an enrollment. which would be used possibly to simply correct an error. We've had people, well, again, this is going to be unlikely in the new scenario, but you've had situations, somebody signs up for I-2, they meant to sign up for I-3. How do you transfer? It's pretty simple. But you could also use this as a way of doing a tuition forward. If somebody notifies us, you know, do we forward them to the following term? That's an interesting question. Karen, I'm going to make a note of it here on the tape to remind myself. I'm not sure we're going to allow tuition forwards. In other words, what Howard's document said is it's a one-time only, you can take it. So if somebody signed up for part two, and certainly for part one, part one, I have the feeling the part one is, the plan is to make that free going forward. But for the part two, that's a one-time, as you could heard, a courtesy to the people that paid the full $90 this term. They're being given a one-time opening to take part two for free. But after that, it would go up to $90 is my assumption. So again, I have some things to probe on in terms of the implications for tuition forwards. We'll talk a little bit about a reporting, one of which this administrative payment summary is very much akin to what you all do as the daily closeout, the cash receipts report that you wrap, you know, checks and cash around and put in Sheila's mail slot. Hi, Sheila. And then the attendance sheet that you would put out before class. Okay, moving right along. Have you all logged in successfully to LearningStream? Yes,
I have.
Thumbs up. Okay, good, good. If not, let me know, but I'm going to presume. Now, when you log in, the way I've set up the login is there's a default view. There are three different views. You could come in and look at a dashboard, which is more of a management thing we don't need. You could also come in and look at the not posted events, but I have it set up to look at the posted events. And here's something, and you find this in systems all the time. You go from one system to another, similar concepts, but with different names. So in the ActiveNet world today, we have a status for a course that is tentative. Well, in LearningStream, that's called not posted. We have a status for a course in ActiveNet called open. We move it from tentative to open is synonymous to moving it from not posted to being posted live. So it means it's ready for prime time. So the way I have it set is when you guys log in, you'll immediately come to a list of the posted events, which will look like I'm showing down here on the bottom. One of the strange things that sometimes they're inconsistent in their nomenclature. So even though in the drop-down list it's called posted live, in this little table over here, it's called a current event. Similar, it's the same thing. They just used a different label. So you'll see it in some places called posted live, and here you'll see it as a current event or a past event. And then there's something that's called archived, which would be similar to our either closed or retired courses in ActiveNet, things that have come and gone. So you'll see a list of them. Now, again, you should only see Philosophy Works at the 6 different times at which it's going to be created. We haven't created this yet. We're still in the process of building this stuff. And I'm presuming that we're going to make one section for Philosophy 2, because what's the likelihood of 140 people all showing up on whatever, one of those, one of the 3 or 4 times. If that changes, I'll let you know. But you're likely not going to see a huge list now. You're just going to see 6 or 7 courses that are in the current or posted live status. So you would click on the title. Let's say now I'm going to go through how you'd enroll somebody. Any questions before I go on?
No.
I might want to bring up that there's no such thing as a training LearningStream.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's what happened with that mysterious registration that happened Wednesday night.
Oh, somebody thought they were doing training?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. I know you're busy tomorrow, Karen. Do you think it'll be into, if it's, we could talk. I want to. Okay. So that's not a real registration?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll get rid of it if you haven't already. So, and then I want the name of the culprit. No, I'm just kidding. They're technically, to be precise, they have a training environment, but you can't copy from live to trainer. So you'd have to configure everything afresh, as opposed to ActiveNet where you can copy things in and have a nice little sandbox to play around. So effectively, you're right. There is no play space. I do have some, and you'll see, you get a homework assignment tonight. I do have some fake courses set up, which I'm going to leave with you a practicum to go in and play around and enroll people. But let's move through enrollment. So you'd first click on the title of the desired course or event, and now, if the list were too big, which now, as I'm saying, is not a likely situation, you could filter it. There's the category. So if you say foundation, we're going to use the same categories and nomenclature we have today, where foundation is like parts 2 through, it'll actually be parts 2 through 6. In ActiveNet this term, there's going to be a part 6. There'd be an I level, M level, N level, and so forth. But again, going into this next term, you would just see O1 Philosophy Works or O2 Foundation. So if you wished, you could filter it. And Charlene up in Hudson Valley could say, instead of not selecting a location, she could narrow it down to her world. All right, but having narrowed it down, you would then click on the name. And as I said, registration is a two-step process, and I'm going to take you through that. Registering the student and then processing the payment, which again, for Philosophy Works is a non-event. Okay, let's go through that. So within the event, once you're in the event, you've clicked on that Philosophy Works, and you'll see there's some test guys out there. You'll see a list of everybody who's already enrolled, and their status would be confirmed. And I'm going to come back to all this business at a moment, but for now, I'm dealing with a new registration. You'd click New Individual Registration, and then depending on whether you're doing it for Philosophy Works or Philosophy 2, it's slightly different, because Philosophy Works does not involve a database. So as I said, low frictionless. It's just first name, last name, and email address. End of story. Now, actually, I started to create a view. This is one that assumes a payment. I think I put in a view here. Let me see if I got to it. Yes. Okay. This is a first view, but I've got to explore some more. This is for Philosophy 2. You can put in a discount code. And I made one up, but I'm not sure the leadership would be happy with it. I put it in as F19 PW, fall 2019 Philosophy Works, F19 PW. But maybe they'll come up with something more elegant. But in any case, and Karen, I hope you don't mind, I used your database record as playing around. You now have a history. Oh, didn't you ever? The thing that I don't like so far, which is a little counterintuitive, is you have to say cash or check or credit card. Even though I've tested it, you put in the code, you click submit registration. You have to pick one of these, but it's not going to ask you to actually enter a check number. I don't understand. I got to play around with it some more. So let me go see. You see this thing? I got method of payment must be. I got an error message because I tried to just click submit. There's my F19 PW. So I came back and I clicked one of those, and I satisfied myself that it went through, but it never asked me really for that. So I don't know if that's something I can speak to the vendor for them to clean up at some stage. But this is you're basically putting in very little information. However, if it is a database event, for the time being, for Philosophy 2, you're not really going to find existing people, but I did show the pathways, right? You can either select an existing person, you'd see them listed, and you could you can search for them. You can click, let's say E, and you'd find everybody whose last name began with E. You can search for and select someone, and then the difference again in the database record is it's not just first name, last name, and email address. It's got phone number and address. By the way, one of the questions that's sitting with the leadership is, do we want to capture any other information in the database? For example, ActiveNet, insofar as it was a team sport kind of system is the way it grew up. They would require information such as gender and date of birth, which we made use of for demographic reporting, for senior citizens discounts, etc. But there's a question in front of the leadership as to whether we're going to add that to the phone number and address. But that's how you do it for a database event. It needs more information. Again, you can either select an existing one and then click submit registration, having put in the information. I'm sorry, excuse me. If you select existing, you're presented with this information. You're just inspecting it to make sure, you can turn the screen to the person and say, hey, is this still good? And then you're off to the races and hit submit registration. Or if they're not an existing one, you would click create new registrant and fill in the information, and then click Submit Registration. By the way, the system requires you to put in a password, put in something that works, 7 digits with a letter and a bunch of numbers. The student is then going to be required to update the password the first time they log in. All right, moving right along. This again is a very quick slide I put together under the idea of a discount code. There's no discount code needed for Philosophy Works, and the price is 0, so it should bypass any of this business. It's not even going to ask you for a payment record. All right, what will happen when you finish submitting the registration is the registrant, the student, is going to appear now on that list that you saw before, and to the right of their name for Philosophy Works, if you didn't put in the discount, excuse me, for part 2, if you didn't put in the discount code, you would see a $90 due. So this particular path is now going to be the path less traveled. Philosophy Works, you'll never see this because there's nothing due. And Philosophy 2, for most people, I presume you're going to put in the discount code, there'll be nothing due. So I'm going to move through this somewhat quickly, and we can, we'll talk about it as we get closer to the term. We'll have some follow-up. So you would see if they didn't put in the discount code, and this is for Philosophy 2, you would see a $90 amount due. The student is going to get a confirmation email, and now let's move on to how we would process the payment. All right. You'll see a list of everybody who is confirmed for that class. Some of them will have no dollar amounts next to their name. Some of them, if they have a dollar amount, that means they owe that money. And these are a bunch of test cases. Left of each name, there are a series of 3 of 4 icons. You can edit the record. You can enter the financials for the record. If the person's been enrolled, you can cancel the enrollment by hitting that one with a little red X on it. Or you can re-register them if they've been previously canceled. And the canceled people will drop to the bottom of the list. And it's actually pretty slick. We were looking for that student who we all of a sudden found, and we just put in Guelph. And it'll find, if you put in something in the search field up here, it'll find it if that string exists in their first name or in their last name. If you click one of these buttons down here, that's only operating on the last name. Again, this is within a particular class, so it shouldn't be too big a list. Anyway, so you'll see the list of all the players, and what you would do is you would click the $sign. Remember, we're up to the place where we're saying, oh, we have somebody who owes $90. In this example, they owed $1. I was playing around cheap. But you would click the $, for the student for whom you want to process the payment. So you click the $sign. You'll see a screen that is similar to what I'm showing at the bottom here, where you can click the Enter Payment button. When you click the Enter Payment button, you're presented with a bunch of different possibilities, 4 of which you can take, one of 4 of which you could take. You can process a check, credit card, e-check, which is very similar to what ActiveNet calls ECP, electronic check processing. In other words, you put in the bank routing number and the ABA number. Sorry. Or you can take cash. Now, this first example is I've selected check. I hit continue. I get this other window that pops up where you'd put in some descriptive information for the check number, put in the amount of the check. Ideally, it's the amount that's owed, but it does allow for you to have a partial payment, which would be exceptional. And then you would click Save Changes, and the person would now have nothing owed. If you want to edit, now you could delete that check. If, let's say they're standing in front of you tearing up the check for some reason, or if you misread the check and you entered it improperly, if you noticed something was wrong, you can come back and edit it. Because what you're now seeing underneath this one person's record, and again, this is within the particular course, you're seeing that they registered, this first line, and the second line is the payment processing. So you could come in here and edit the amount. Again, don't be thrown off by the fact that this is no longer a valid example, because you'll never be into payment information for Philosophy Works. It's going to be free. Really just for those people that don't have the discount code for Philosophy 2. Everybody else is going to be an ActiveNet. If you're doing credit card, very similar to what we're familiar with, put in the card number. By the way, there are no magnetic stripe cards that work for Learning Stream. So the good news is there won't be too much of it this term. Similarly, e-check would be, you'll get a little message, thank you for your payment. And again, they would see, here's the results. The results are a little bit different. You cannot delete the credit card. You can't change the credit card. You can come in and do a refund or view it, but unlike a check, you can't change it or delete it once you've hit submit. It's going to be processed right away. And that is somewhat of a significant difference. Some of you may know, in ActiveNet, you sort of have until midnight. You can void out a transaction. There's no such opportunity here. All right. You also can do e-check, as I mentioned. You put in the bank information, the account information, and you're off to the races doing that path. And of course, I don't think I illustrated, but you could do cash as well. There is a view statement function, and the idea is that if they're walk-ins, they would not be on the roster that went upstairs for attendance. Similar to what we do today, you could print a statement for them to carry up to the secretary. All right, moving right along, the public, this is just an example of what the public sees. They put in their information, they hit submit registration. Again, it's very thin, first name, last name, and email address, and they submit the registration. And I'm sorry, there's a confirmation that when they put in their credit card information, and then they'll get a confirmation email that they get sent. This is what's called an event page, which is going to be seen by the public for everything except Philosophy Works. Philosophy Works, the web team decided we can bypass this because all of the information's on the web page. So they jump right to what I showed a moment ago of putting in the very simple information. All right, I'm moving quickly. I'm sure you're not getting all of this, but we can come back and do review. All right, canceling.
Quick question.
Yes, please.
The walk-ins for Philosophy Works, will they fill out the regular registration forms that we have now, just with their name, first name, last name, and email address, or are they going to be special?
That's a very good question. Yes, that would be the intention. If you can't handle them because of the traffic, that's something Karen lets you and me look at. You and I look at that. The form should be good because really all you need to capture is first name. I mean, it would have been the case this term. Whatever worked this term, no, I'm sorry. This term you would have had to capture credit card information. So it's going to be even simpler. First name, last name, and email address.
With the same forms that we have now.
Start again?
But we're using the same forms that we have, but we don't have to fill in all that other information.
Yeah, the other thing that comes to mind we'll have to fill in is if you're the guy here on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, designate that it was for Wednesday night. First, on the west side, on Wednesday morning, we'll have to designate that. Just in case we have a backlog and somebody else is keying it in, we want to be able to be precise and put them in the class so they show up on the roster.
Right.
Yeah, so it's this information plus, as far as I can think at the moment, it's going to be this information plus the group the class designation. Okay. Again, I don't expect you're going to get a backlog for the ones that have to pay for Philosophy 2, but if you did, you'd have to capture their credit card information as well.
Right.
Okay, moving right along. Let's see, canceling, as I said, is a two-step process. Again, there's the piece of it that takes them out of the class, but that would leave a credit balance on their account. So we have to deal with the process, which could be deal with the payment, which could be a refund, but it could also be there's a way to transfer it to a subsequent term. So again, you go into the list of people, and you want to click that little red X, which is designated in the legend as cancel, pardon me. But let's say, I don't know, Jane Blog, oh no, Jane Blog was already canceled. The first person, test last name, test first name, you would click on them, you would see, it would bring up their information, and you just confirm by hitting cancel registration. But now what you've done is that person who before was confirmed and owed $90 is now canceled, which probably means if I use the same example, they would have that 90, no, they'd still, yeah, they hadn't paid it. So it's actually, in this case, there'd be nothing to refund. Just some notes. When you cancel the registration, you do have to process the payment, either as a refund, but there are going to be some situations, because as I said, LearningStream is handling it's not waiting till midnight. You may not be able to issue a refund if it's not been settled yet. And on the other side, if it's happened over 30 or 60 days ago, this wouldn't usually happen. We wouldn't let people get a refund so much later. But this is just coming out of the LearningStream help manual. There are certain situations where you wouldn't be able to process a refund. So I think just talk to your team lead. We're all learning about this together. We'll deal with those situations. You may need to make a note and try again the next morning, or have the next team member pick it up. All right. Canceling, processing the payment as a refund. If you cancel them, you now want to go into that $sign. So again, any of these examples down below where you see the word canceled, these are people where you've taken out their enrollment. They would not appear on the class, but we may owe them a refund. If you now go in to process the refund, you pick up, you've hit that $sign, and you can see a button to refund in the case of a credit card. So you would click the button to refund. You'll see this information down below. It gives the option to refund the whole amount, which would be usually the case. But you might, we might decide to hold something back. And then you put in the amount and click complete refund. Other refunds, other than what they call here integrated payment processing, in other words, other than credit card or creating somebody's bank account, you would have to go in and do an adjustment and enter a negative amount and put in some kind of description. So I think I have that illustrated here. You click in enter adjustment, you go in and you put in some information, for example, to issue a refund check, and this is just my training example. And as our past practice, you'd notify Sheila to cut a check. Okay, all right. You still there, Sheila? Okay, sorry, I'm just having fun. All right. So that's how you would deal with somebody who paid by check. Obviously, if they're just sitting there and then you've got the check in your hand, you don't even have to go through this. You could tear up the check. I think I have an example of this. You can simply delete the payment. So instead of going in to edit the payment, you just click delete. This is in the case of a check, right? The payment was made by check. All of a sudden, for some reason, you could either edit it if you put in the wrong amount, or you could simply delete it if they're saying, oh, you know what, I changed my mind, tear up the check. So there are a number of different ways to deal with. You don't have to issue a refund check if it's physically still with you. Okay. You can, moving to a slightly different topic, if for some reason you needed to edit the student's basic information, that first icon all the way on the left, which looks like a little pen or pencil and a piece of paper, you can bring up their basic information and change something. Let's say there was a typo in their email address or a name change or something like that. So you simply go in and edit it, overtype it and hit save change. But there's this one other cute little thing, which actually Karen and I were using in an interesting situation we saw from last night, where you can click on view history. And this is not a complete student log. This is a log for the student's activities in respect of this particular class. So for example, here's an example of, I was playing around with a student named Joe. I'm sorry, the name on the left will be one of your names. This is who on the group was doing this. So that's how we busted the player from last night. And this is for, the person's name is up here. It's a fake name, test first name, test last name. And you can see all the things that were going on back in a couple of days ago in October in the morning. We created a registration, we confirmed it, we processed it, we confirmed the payment via check, we canceled it, did we issue a refund, we deleted the payment, yeah. So these are all of the steps that were taken over about an hour period. We were playing around the other morning. So that's the log. Okay. In the same way that I just showed how to edit the basic information for, and this would be for the introductory course, any student who's got a database record, very similar, you can go in and, I'm sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. Here we go. You can go into the database. You're now not going into an event. You're going to the database, which is up at the top, and you're finding a student and you're clicking edit for that student. And very similarly, although it's a little bit richer because you've got the address and phone number, you could change that information. Any questions on all this? All right, moving right along. Let's see. You can override the fee. Again, with our current situation, the likelihood of doing this is slim to none. But as we move along and we have some of the higher priced courses and so forth, you probably all have experienced something where a tutor comes in and they say, I got permission to change the fee for this person. You could use this to override the fee. We'll come back to this. The main thing to know is when you put in such an adjustment, you use a minus sign to make a reduction. So here it is before. The amount due is $1. I made a 50-cent reduction. The amount due afterwards is 50 cents. It's been a minus 50-cent adjustment. Again, not going to have much of that given all the free stuff going on. All right, to transfer an enrollment, again, not going to have much scope for this, but you could in the future, somebody signed up and they made a mistake and they tell you about it and they signed up for part 3 and they meant to go to part 4. There is a transfer function which you can click, and then it's going to give you a list of possible classes into which to transfer this person.
Where is the selection? How do I get to the transfer?
Okay, so I've jumped over the fact that when you're looking at a particular course, let me go back to one example of it. When you look at a course, you see a whole bunch of people underneath that course. So you would go in and select their, I believe it's that you edit their information, and you would go in and you'll see something like, sorry, I'm jumping around. You would see something like this. Yeah, editing a registration. You would see something like this. Their confirmed status for Philosophy 3. You would select that little pen and paper next to their name, and you'll be presented with the possibility you resend them a confirmation message, or you could do a transfer. If you do a transfer, you're presented with a series of possibilities into which to transfer them. And again, there's a bunch of stuff there now that is bogus. We've been playing around. I believe when we got this tightened up, you'd only see, you might see almost next to nothing. You'd probably see philosophy, the 6 different philosophies. Oh yeah, here's the situation. They signed up for Monday night, and you're gonna send them to Tuesday night. That would be a real use case that could happen. And so that should be, you're not going to see past events, certainly not next term, because everything is then. And I don't see why you would transfer somebody to this term from the next term back to this term. I'm not even sure why past events even show up, but I'd hope you wouldn't select one. So that's what you would do. And then you'll be presented, when you transfer them, you're also given a little warning that they're going to get a cancellation notice from the source event. They're going to get a confirmation notice from the new event, which is very nice. They're going to be told, you're being taken out on Monday night, you're being put in Tuesday night. Now, you also have the option, which you would do in that case, to transfer their monies. In other words, you're taking this person, but again, this is a mixed example because there's not going to be any monies from Monday to Tuesday night. So I'm sorry, it's not a good example. And for part 2, there may be monies, but there's only going to be one part 2 to my knowledge. So again, this is useless. I'm sorry, entirely useless now that I think of it. Okay, but for the future, there would be a way to move the monies as well as the person from one class to another. And oh, by the way, if and when we start doing tuition forwards, this would be the way that you would move their tuition into the next term. So we'll come back to that when we can really have it set up with a real example. Okay. So that's transferring the registration and also transferring the credit, because once you cancel it, you're going to have some monies to deal with. Okay. I'm just going to leave this alone for now. There is a way to transfer somebody's balance, but again, it's going to be a very limited way that we'll have to deal with this, so we'll come back to this some other time. And now I'm on to the final area of reporting. So before I go into that, let me just stop again and see if there are any questions about what you've seen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share this video. As I said, if you're having trouble sleeping, you can watch it in the evening. I'm also going to take these slides and put them into a PDF. And you could review them, talk to your team lead, talk to us. You know, I understand between now and when we get going, you know, this is not all going to stay in memory. So we'll certainly be available to help us all through this. So let me get on to the reporting subject. The last one I'm not going to go into. It's something Karen and Barry and I looked at earlier today for the monthly close. So that's not something you need to look at. But these first two are very similar to, the first one is effectively the daily close report. And some of you might have been doing this already with LearningStream. And then the next one is the attendance sheet. So the quote unquote daily close report, actually, there are two different ways to get to reports. One at a global level, and another one I'll show you in a moment where you're doing a report within a particular event, you know, part one Monday night. This one, the daily close, you're not closing out a particular class. You're closing out your cash register for the night. So this spans any different number of classes. Although again, it's a silly example because you're only going to be receiving money for part two, and then only in a limited case. So, you know, we'll see how it becomes, but it still would be applicable. You come into reports, go to financial, and you go to payment summary. So reports, there's a drop down for financial, and then you go to payment summary. You're then presented with a little dialogue like this, and you would put today's date as the start date, and today's date is the end date. You could either generate a spreadsheet, but more likely you would generate a display, and then route that to print. So you then say load report, and you'll see something that looks like this, which you could then route to print, which says, okay, you're $180, you know, again, this is from part one from a, you know, what date was this? Back in July, as an example. You know, we had a couple of people sign up for $90, and we had one phony thing we were playing around with a dollar check. So that's what you're seeing here is $181, but that's what you would take, wrap around the checks and cash, and put it into Sheila's mail slot as your daily close process. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Okay. And then last, not least, this is the attendance sheet. Now this is not at a global level. Now this is dealing within a particular event. So you go to the button where it says event. Let me remind you how to find that. Well, here it is. Up at the top, as I said, when you first come into LearningStream, you're going to be positioned on the current events or the posted events. But if you went somewhere else, the way to get back there is you go up to the heading and you click events. And then it's going to show you the list of events, and you're going to pick the one that you want. So let's say you pick Philosophy Works, right? We saw that way back at the beginning. You would click the title for the class that you want. Once you pick it, there's a menu that shows up on the left-hand side where you can register somebody and you could do reports. So within the event, when you select the desired course, you go to Reports, you go to Custom Reports. This is something that LearningStream custom built for us. You then go to the course attendance sheet. So that's the breadcrumbs, that's the path. Event, select the course, go to Reports, look down the list of 5 or 6 categories. It's the custom reports, pick the course attendance sheet, and et voila, you get a very simple dialogue that simply wants you to say, what's the date range? And you know what? You're going to do it, probably, you can't do it for any more than 20 dates. So again, for part one, and you're dealing with Monday night, you could get all 10 nights. You know, you could put the beginning and end date of the whole term because it's only going to be 10 occurrences across a 10-week period. Where this would become an issue is if you had a part two that had 3 nights a week, you would only do it for the first couple of weeks because after, 20 divided by 3, after 6 weeks, you can't get any more in there. So you would click the date range. You probably do it in landscape mode. You click load report, and you'll see something that looks very familiar because they did model it after what we gave them as an example out of ActiveNet. And it gives you Of course, attendance sheet, which not only has where people have been reflecting their past attendance, but this will go into the books, and the secretaries can put a check mark, and then the team that picks that up will enter it into LearningStream.
For that reason, you don't want to pick landscape because it doesn't fit nicely in the book.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you. I was not alive to that. Okay, yes, very good point. So make it portrait. Thank you. And the other thing I'll just point out is this number on the right-hand side is not a true total. It's a total of what's on this report. In other words, if you were to do this right now, yes, there are 3 check marks. There's a 3. But if I now move it forward to the next 20 occurrences going from October 1st to, I don't know, November 15th, and they attended another 4 times on that other report, you wouldn't see 7, you'd see 4. In other words, it's not a true running total of their attendance. It's a total of what's shown on this report. We'll live with that. It's just so you don't make a mistake. If somebody asks you, how many times has this person attended, there's going to be other methods to get the answer to that question, but it's not.
Well, it would be better to be without that column then. It would be better to just omit this column.
I can put you in touch with LearningStream. We'll see how much they charge us to take it out. We'll talk. It's a fair point. I'm not sure. Let's stay with it a little bit. Maybe there is some use to it. We can explore dropping it out and see what they say about that. All right, that's it. Oh, here's the homework. Here's the homework. You might want to take note of this, or you're going to have to look in the PDF that I send you. The homework is, and we've got 26 minutes to talk about this. Good. I want you to enroll yourself. Now, I don't want you to enroll as if you're coming from the public. You'd log into LearningStream. It just so happens the person you're enrolling is yourself. I know this violates everything I've always told you is I don't want you using the front desk to enroll yourself because it's sort of a violation of good accounting practice. But for this example, you'll find out there a current event called Training Philosophy 3. Now, I know that doesn't make sense because we're not going to be enrolling people in LearningStream, but work with me here because I only found out today we're not using it for Philosophy 3. So I've got a test case out there or a use case that you could play around with, and I want you to enroll yourself in that class. Rest assured, you're not going to have to take out your credit card because the next thing is that you're going to simulate that it was paid in full by a check, and I want you to use check number 12E79. I want you to generate an attendance sheet for that same course for a period from January 6th to February 19th and email it to registration@philosophyworks.org as a PDF attachment. Finally, I want you to generate a payment summary from a huge range, everything from August 1st to the current date. It should include the check that you cut on the day that you do this. Save that as a PDF and also send it to the registration inbox. Your mission, should you choose to accept. All right, that should give you some hands-on experience of. Now, again, the only real use of this will be for someone who's coming in with a check for Philosophy 2 that doesn't have the discount code. Right now, that Training Philosophy 3 is not set up to receive a discount code. So I built these materials before this new pathway, but I still think it would be a valid exercise because if somebody comes in for Philosophy 2 and needs to pay the $90 and is giving you a check, this will be the path that they take. Admittedly, the title is erroneous. It says Philosophy 3, but I didn't change on it. Is that clear? Any questions about that?
Saving it as a PDF, is this an option or is there any other action to take? In other words, how do you save it?
I believe that if you right-click on one of those displayed reports, you'll have the option to save it as a PDF. If not, I'd be interested. I really didn't explore that. It's a good point. You could certainly do it. Let me show you. I'll go back. You could certainly do it as an Excel spreadsheet. no,
Yeah, I
this one
think
you-
I saw
this-
an Excel as one of the
Yeah,
options.
Excel was an option for this one, for the cash report. But let me ask you guys something. Did you not create attendance sheets for this past term for Out of Learning Stream? How did
I had.
how did you print it?
Um,
You just right click and hit print?
I don't
trusting-
remember, but
I'm
it was
trusting
not.
that you'll also have an option to save it as, and then choose PDF. If not, take a screenshot. Another technical challenge. One way or another, send me the homework. Take out your phone and take a picture of the screen.
Ooh.
I'm flexible. Okay, so that's the homework. Enroll yourself. Remember, it's a two-part operation. You're going to go, let me just go way back to sort of simulate what you're going to do. You're going to pick that course, which again, in my example here, I don't show it, unfortunately. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring up Learning Stream in a moment, and you can actually observe this going on. But you would pick I'm going way back to the beginning. You're going to find it. Here it is, training. Oh, this says philosophy 2, but I changed it to training philosophy 3. So click the title, training philosophy 3. Then you're going to be a new individual registrant. So within the event, you're going to click it. We do have a little bit of time, so I'm going to actually go through this real time right now. Let me do it that way. It's probably a better way to do this. Just give me a moment. Okay, do you see the Learning Stream login?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so as I mentioned, you're being brought immediately to current events. One of the current events that's hanging out there is the one that I've asked you to enroll yourself, Training Philosophy 3. If you click on that, you'll see everybody that's already registered for Philosophy 3. And these are a bunch of bogus test first name, test last names. We're going to blow this away after we're finished with this exercise. So you're going to do a new individual registration. Now this Philosophy 3, we could select an existing registrant, but there's only one person out there, and I don't know if it'll let me do it. Oh, no, I didn't cancel you. I could probably select Karen. She's the only person on the database, but you're doing it for yourself. So you're going to go in there and create a new registrant, and your first name is going to be, I don't know, I'll make it up, Norbert Breckman. And again, you have to put in a 7-digit. I think I can put in 7 digits. Let me have fun here.
I think it's 8.
Oh, it's 8. So now
I'm not sure, but I think.
Okay, so I'm going to put a 7. I put an L with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I know I said use a C. But you put in anything that works. You got to put in a phone number. I'll put in mine. Cell phone. I will put in registration at. And I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that, because what's going to happen if you check the inbox later is you'll see a confirmation message as if it came to you at home. So I'm just using this. You know, it's not supposed to be registration at. It's like the student's personal email address. Say they at 12 East 79th Street is a fake. And just so that I can complete it, what did I say? You have to do it via check, right? And, oh, I got to take this out of here. I still have this. I was playing around with some payment plans. Well, I have to take this out. All right, so submit the registration, and you will have, oh, there's an account already created with this email address.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Okay. David, do you mind if I have this sent to you for this particular example?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, so it's Yerner at AOL.com.
Yes.
What a memory. Okay. Now, each of you guys will use your own. So I'll probably have to, I will cancel this one out. Otherwise, you'll get this same error.
Right.
Uh, yeah, I'm going to have to delete the account also. So, all right, let me try again. Submit registration. Et voila, there's now Norbert Freckman confirmed, but owes $90. So again, to the second part of the homework is to go in and pay it, which you hit the $, and we're going to enter payment. Let me just go back to the previous page. Before I go there, you'll see that the first part of the equation, the registration, is sitting there. It's sitting there with the total fee, and the total amount is due at this moment in time. But I'm going to now enter a payment, and I'm going to say it's a check. I'll continue, and I'm going to say it's a $90 check. You do not need to put in, and please don't deposit date. We don't know when this might get deposited. It's not required. Reference is not required either, but I'm going to ask you to please take note of the check number. Okay, and put it in there and save the transaction. And now, et voila, we've made an honest man of Norbert Freckman because the amount due is 0. Okay, so let me just try to answer Norbert's question. If I go in for this event and I now go I'm going to go to reports, not for this event. I'm going to go to financial and payment summary. And I'm going to look for today's date. What is it today? The 17th? And I don't have to select the location because, and I load a report. Et voila. Oh, there must have been other things going on. I played around earlier in the day. Okay, so there's more than the $90 check I just processed. There was another check. So let me just have fun here. Okay, so I'm right-clicking on this. If I do save as, let's see the options. Adobe Acrobat, yay.
Mm.
Okay, so simply save it. Wherever you want to save it, I'll put it in my my downloads, or I'll put it in my downloads. So homework to attach the email, or maybe put your name on it so we know it's saved, and then just send that. So you see that, Norbert? It's pretty straightforward. You can right-click it. You can hit print.
Right-click anywhere on the.
Yep, right-click anywhere on that white space of the report. So you can hit print. You can hit save as.
Good.
Depending on your situation, right? If I was doing this, let me go back into the other part of the homework assignment, and that is to go into the particular event, which is this training for Philosophy 3, which now not only has, oh, Edmund Lee is ahead of the game. This guy is fast. Look at this. Okay. So Mr. Lee is on the case, and he's in there with Tess last name, first name, whatever, Norbert Freckman, all of these guys. So if you go into reports, and again, the custom report and the course attendance sheet, and you change the date range to today's date. Let's see. Again, you may not do it this way. You might do it if you're there on a Tuesday. You might back it up to Monday. You got to think about it a little bit. But yeah, let me back it up to what was Monday this week? Was that the 14th?
Yeah, 14th, Columbus Day.
Right, and we did have classes, so I'll put it there. And let's say I want to do it for, I don't know, I'll just play around. I don't want to think too strongly about this. 7-1, I don't know if that even makes sense. But let's take a look at it, and then click Load Report. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen, I didn't put it in portrait. That would have been.
That's all right. We'll forgive you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I can go back. Oh, what just happened?
I don't know.
Sorry, an error recurred.
Oh.
Oh, I hate when that happens. Maybe it's because I didn't put it in portrait.
No.
No. Did I do for more than 20 dates? Maybe. Let me just lower this. Shouldn't be. I didn't think so. But let me do it for. I'll just do it for 2 weeks. 10/28, 2019.
No, something else.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, this is the first. I mean, I was able to do it successfully because I showed you examples in the slides, but I'm afraid I don't know what's going on at the moment. Because obviously I was able to. There's an example of the attendance sheet which you saw before. So this is something new. I'll dig into it, but I don't want to take more of your time on this. All right. If you can't do the homework, of course you get to blame it on the technical problems. But give it a go. Maybe it's something funny going on with my computer. I really can't say it.
Also, excuse me, Mr. Kraus?
Yes, Mr. Lee.
I ran the report, the payment summary report, 2 different ways. One from the top, so to speak, and one from the side. And I got different results. One of the reports listed them individually, myself and Norbert at 180. The other just had consolidated 180. It didn't break it out.
Yes. Now, again, the one on the side is working at an event level.
Okay, got it. Understood.
That would explain it. Then within that event, it's going to drill into more details and show you particular students. But that is not what we need to do for a daily close. Because again, you may have multiple classes for which you're closing out your cash box. Again, not in this next term, it's just all going to be philosophy too, but in the future, use the one at the top, okay? And like you saw, it's a much higher level summary. Good.
Okay, will do.
Good. Very good. Any other questions? All right. I'm sure things will come up. You know how to reach us. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we will come to rest.